So I started cubing in 2018, early 2018. I just saw it on YouTube. I don't really remember the exact context, but I just saw it on YouTube. It seemed like something I would be interested in and maybe good at. So because I didn't know any better, I bought like a starter speed cube set from Amazon. Those are my first cubes. They were like the frosted chi budget cubes. You know what I'm talking about? It
Yep,
had
I know
a two
exactly
by
what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It had a 2x2, a 3x3, a Pyraminx, and a Skewb. And those were my first cubes. I learned them all in the span of like 2 months. And the 3x3 was the last one I learned. That was really hard for me at the time, just like learning how to solve a 3x3. Um, but I went to my first competition in October of 2018, Flag City Fall, and I might have gotten dead last in 3x3. Um, I was definitely not like I didn't really practice at that point. Like solving Rubik's cubes was just like a thing I did for fun. It wasn't something I really cared about or practiced. But that competition made me want to get faster because I saw how fast people were compared to me, and I'm a pretty competitive
hmm
person. So I wanted to continue improving. So I kept going to comps. I went to one more in 2018, and I went to several in 2019. And then COVID happened. I went to my one comp in 2020. And then I had another comp in 2020 get canceled for reasons unrelated to COVID, and then COVID hit. So once COVID hit, because there were no comps, I quit cubing. I didn't cube for like 4 years, uh,
Oh
probably
wow.
3 years, because I did cube a little bit in COVID, but once it was obvious that comps weren't gonna be a thing for a while, I just quit cubing. I did other stuff. I got into gaming, and I've always like played sports, so I was still doing that. Um, but then there was in 2023 in August, there was a comp in my hometown, Fort Wayne Favorites, that was like super, super close to me. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna practice for this, but I'll sign up because it's right there. Um, and I remember going to that comp, I was averaging around 12 seconds on 3x3. And I did really, really well for myself. I got a sub 10 average, which for me at the time was like really good. So that made me want to practice cubing more. And then after that comp, I went home and cubed a lot. At that comp, I was on my old GAN X, this thing. I love this cube. And I remember going home, practicing with that cube a bunch. I got my average down to sub 10 pretty quick. And then I started competing seriously at the start of 2024. I started going to a lot of comps. First, I
Holy
kept it
cow,
to,
dude. I didn't
yeah.
realize, like, I didn't scroll down all the way to the bottom. I didn't see the giant gap. So you've been to a
Yeah.
hundred something competitions basically in the last 2 years.
Yeah. So over the past 2 years, I've been one of
Holy
the most,
cow. That's
I've
like
been one of
every week.
I'm one of the WCA's most active competitors. Yeah. um, a big part of that. My best friend Emery McFeeder lives in a really strategic location. For comp spamming, so I stay with him a lot, and we go to comps together. He loves competing a lot. Um, and we we'll do things like we'll go on 6 day road trips where we go to 5 comps.
Okay,
Uh,
explain this to me, because this sounds amazing. How? I'm in Southern California, where like yesterday I drove 3 hours for like one of the comps that's like one of the only comps that'll happen for this 6 month period. And there's quite a
yeah.
few, but it's like 3 hours to that one, and then the next one is 3 weeks away, and that's a 2.5 hour drive. So I'll drive it, but it only comes
hmm
up every 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, so the only reason I'm able to compete as much as, and I've been competing less in college as a result of this, one of the reasons I was able to compete so much is because the Midwest quietly is one of the most competitive and one of the most active communities in the world.
hmm
There's so many if you're willing to drive 4 or 5 hours in the Midwest, you can go to a comp every week and not have to worry about it. Like you can pretty
Hmm.
much plan on there being one every week. And that's what I would do. I would just drive to the closest comp every weekend. Unless the closest comp was over 5 hours away, then I just usually wouldn't go. Um I
That's
did
so
make some
interesting.
yeah, I did
So
make
from
some
from where
long
you lived, like what's the circle of like where you can get to? Like what are the cities at
okay.
the outermost?
So I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, which
Okay.
is another reason I was able to do this. So Fort Wayne, the reason I love Fort Wayne is if you have a 4 or 5 hour radius, you can get to basically every major Midwestern town. You can get to Lexington, Kentucky, you can get to Louisville, you can get to Dayton, Ohio, Toledo, Cleveland, Columbus. With Michigan, you get to
Yeah,
Detroit,
that's
Ann
the
Arbor,
north of
Lansing.
Indiana. Yeah, so
Yep,
everything Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, Wisconsin,
Illinois.
Minneapolis, Iowa,
Yeah,
Illinois, Missouri, like even
you
Tennessee
can
if
get
you
to
stretch it.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to Tennessee. I've never been to Iowa. I'm going to Heartland Champs probably, so that'll be
Bro,
my
you've
first
never
time in
been to
Iowa.
Iowa? Oh wait,
I've never been
that's
to Iowa
wait,
in
yeah,
my
yeah.
life.
Okay.
I've
I
never
guess
been
there's
to
nothing
Iowa.
in I guess there's nothing in Iowa really. I got
Yeah,
Iowa and Illinois confused. I'm very Californian. The Midwest all kind of blurs together for me.
that's completely understandable. It's like that living there too. So
Huh. Okay, so you live in Indiana and you're so right. There's enough cities in the Midwest with enough people who like look for things to do at home that they would get into cubing and they all organize their own little competitions and you're saying 5-ish hour drive. Every I forget this living in California. Like it's kind of isolated because you have
mhm.
like Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, like the nothing states between you and everything else. And on the east, states are closer together. Okay, so you just like every weekend would drive for like all morning and then get to the comp and then drive like all day Sunday or something.
Usually I do there and back in a day. Like if the comp was 5 hours away, I would just have a 20-hour day, and that's
That's
like what
awesome.
I would do.
Yeah.
Um, or if it was convenient for me to like stay with Emery, because he's in like the Dayton area, so that would extend my range a little bit. So I'd stay with him. Uh, my dad has a place in Indianapolis. That's where he is.
Okay.
So occasionally we would stretch the drive by staying in Indy the night before, stuff like that. But I had a fortunate situation that made it really easy for me to comp spam, and my job that I had at the time, I worked weekdays. They didn't make me work weekends, so as long as I was in there 5 days a week during the week, I could take the weekends off, and they didn't care. So just a lot
Hmm.
of things went right that made it easy for me to do that.
Okay. So does any comp actually stick out when you go to that many, or is it all a blur? Like, are there any where it's like, I remember this one in particular. This was good.
There are so many comps that all kind of feel the same. Like all the, especially ones at the same venue. Like I've been to so many competitions in the great ballroom at the Ohio Union at Ohio State University. I could not tell you which one's which. But there are some comps that I definitely remember as being my favorites. Like Indiana Championship 2024 was probably my favorite comp ever because of like who I stayed with, and I had some good results, like my first sub 2 2x2 average. So a lot of comps, I don't remember them for the comp, but I'd remember them for if there were people there that I don't usually see, or somebody I stayed with, or a really good result I got. That's what would make me remember the comp.
Okay.
Or some comps stuck out to me because other things happened, like Gem City, Ohio Showdown 2025. Well, I had good results at comp already, but then Samir got square one world record at that comp, so I remember
Hmm.
that. Um, yeah, but there are a lot, like if if you were to pull up some random comp I went to that had few significant happenings, I couldn't tell you about it.
Yeah. Okay. So when do you get nervous now, if at all, when you compete? Because I assume because you all round, you have less nerves like per event. And because you compete so much, nerves go down. Is that true, or do you still get nervous consistently?
It's true, but I think it's true to a less extent than you would expect, and I think it's less true for me than it is for a lot of people. Um, I definitely have really bad nerves for Pyraminx. That's my main event. That's the event I'm very highly ranked in the world in. Pyraminx nerves have barely gotten better. Um,
Hmm.
and then besides Pyrrha, it's just the worst nerves are in whatever other event I'm practicing. Like right now for me, that's 5x5. My last 5x5 rounds, I've been really nervous. And when I was really doing blind, I used to get super nervous with 3 blind. 2x2 used to get super nervous. Now I don't because I don't practice it anymore. So it's really just the events I'm practicing are the events that I get more nervous for, I would say.
Sure.
But competing a lot definitely has helped. Like the official solve is such a I mean, I've done over 5,000 of them. It's a thing I'm so used to at this point that um definitely like I get less nervous. I remember back in my comps in like 2019, I used to get super nervous even though I was like nowhere near as like fast as I am now. But comps I went to them like once every couple months. It just wasn't something I was used to. Um and the frequency definitely helps the nerves, I would say.
Okay. Somewhat, but you still have nerves, especially for the stuff you care more about.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
My hands really shake. I have a handshaking problem. Uh, for
that's
sure.
actually super. That's like biological. Some of I read a bunch of interesting. Did you see the video I made about the turning style thing? It's one of the
I
recent
have
ones I
that one.
posted.
I have
Yeah,
that one
so
bookmarked. I want
I
to
I
watch it
didn't
because
I didn't mention this in the video, but I looked into some studies about the science behind why adrenaline affects your shakiness, and I found this really interesting study about how people who took a certain type of inhaler, a subset of them noticed increased hand shakiness. Um, and basically, like all humans have a handshake, whether you notice it or not. And there are certain hormones in this inhaler that are the same sort of hormones that your body exerts when you get stressed. And it basically amplifies the muscle movement. So like different everyone responds differently, which is why only a subset of those inhaler people had it happen. But when they isolated the cause of it, they were like, oh, this is why biologically the same chemical reaction in your brain causes different people a different physical reaction. So like some of that is literally I can't control it. Like you and I get stressed differently. I didn't spend much time on it, but it was kind of interesting.
do you remember what the drug? I take an inhaler for exercise-induced asthma. Do you remember what type of inhaler it was?
I don't remember the
Okay,
drug.
okay. Uh, that's really interesting. I'm gonna look into that. Um, especially because I do take it. I don't take it very often. It's as needed, but I'd be
Yeah.
interested if that is potentially affecting my cubing. That's something I would have never even thought about.
Yeah. Um, I'm definitely going down the supplements and how diet and such affects my cubing and nerves because it affects the rest of my life so strongly. I have very severe ADHD, so the way I respond to stimulants or drugs is like real like it massively affects me. And I've always like I try to stay off just about anything, including like caffeine or sugar. Um, so when I have it, it hits. So I have to see how it affects cubing. Anywho, so Pura was your first event that you actually really started to dig into. Why? Or no? What was it?
It wasn't my first event that I really liked was skew actually.
Okay.
When I got back into cubing in 2024, one of my first comp of the year was Nimble Hands in Noblesville, and I got really good skew results at that comp, and I almost podiumed, which I didn't have a podium before I got back into cubing, and that was back in 2019. That was a super big goal for me. I really wanted a podium, and when I got back into cubing, that was still a goal, and I came so close. I was like, skew is the event I have to practice if I want a podium because it's the one I'm closest in. So I
Mm-hmm.
learned I learned Sarah's Advanced, which is like the step before NS, which is still the method I use. I haven't progressed much in Scube lately, but I I got really into that, and I got sub 4 on Scube at home before I got sub 4 on Pyraminx. But then I don't know what exactly caused me to switch to Pyraminx, but eventually there was a point where I was on a really old Pyraminx. I was on an X-Men Bell version 1, which isn't a bad cube, but it was an old cube, and I got new hardware, I think, and I started practicing a little more, and
What Pura was that?
I
The
the
new
the
one.
the the new one, it was a Pura I don't recommend at all. It was a Maglev Waylong. I don't know why
Oh
that
yeah.
was the one I got, but
But still, like
um
the jump from a Bellevue one to a Waylong is
no, it's
extremely
it's
huge.
it's significant, and it made me realize that Pura was an event. Pura was already an event I liked back before I quit, and I never got super good at it. And I didn't even use the right method. I was using top first at the time, which is still
Yeah,
something I
I
do to
still use top
myself.
first.
Um, so getting the new Pira, I remember doing in the span of a week probably 1,000 solves, and I got down to sub 4, which was one of the first times I ever felt like fast at an event.
Hmm.
Was my first sub 4 Pyraminx average officially was the first time I was like, I might actually be good at cubing. Like that feels fast.
Hmm.
And then but Pura was an event like when I didn't want to practice other stuff, it was just always the thing I came back to. And that mentality ended up causing me to practice Pura more than anything else and get better at it than anything else, I think. But I definitely don't think like the way I went about Pyramid, even though I did improve really quickly in Pyraminx, like last year I went from a 2.5 official average to 1.6. Like I did improve really fast, but I think there were I don't think I went about it correctly. I think there were a lot of things, if I like hindsight being 2020, I would have changed. Um, I definitely think I spammed too many solves instead of focusing on specific things, which in Pyraminx, spamming solves is super important because Pyraminx is one of, I would argue, the only WCA event that is entirely intuitive and algoless at the top level.
Yeah.
So spamming solves is really important to develop like kind of what I would refer to as just like a natural Pyraminx intuition. But I definitely think certain things like my one looking and creativity in my solutions, because I wasn't doing like as much focus practice as I probably should have been, definitely fell by the wayside a little bit. And it's why right now, if you watch my solves, you can tell my greatest strength is my turning. And but I'm a lot of times I'm doing more moves than I think I should be. If that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, well, because like the stuff that your brain defaults to in inspection is old bad habits. And so even if you could override it, it's like hard enough to that you're not going to in a competitive setting.
No, absolutely. Like especially with a competitive setting, I'll like I said, Pyraminx is the event I get the most nerves for by far, and nerves. The way that impacts me most, just across the board, is during inspection. I get a lot worse. So my official strategy with Pyraminx is to usually just do the first thing I see, even if it's not like if I think I can get like a 1.8 on it, even if maybe there's something better, I just do it.
Yeah.
Um, and now that I have like a good official average finally, I'm trying to go away from that to hopefully break into like the 1.4s because to get an average that good, I will need to be more deliberate. But um, that's like a philosophy historically I've held is just go for the first thing I see.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm. How much did you improve like between comps? Like how much do you practice at home from Sunday to Friday? Per day average, and did you see measurable improvement from week to week? Or how long did it take you to see noticeable change in an event?
I think it really depends a lot on the event because obviously I can improve faster in things I'm worse at. But I would say like during my peak comp spam, I was still practicing easily 2 hours a day. Probably more on most days. But the way that was spread up was really like the day before and the day after comps, I usually didn't cube at all. Especially the day after, usually I was pretty burnt out. But um there was usually one day a week where I did not have work and I did not have a comp, so I was able to cube for like 7 hours. And usually that's what I would do. Um During that time I was also in high school and I was not like somebody that spent a lot of time on my schoolwork. So that definitely opened up an opportunity for me to cube more, um, as backwards as those priorities might be. But I think like the what I used to do and what I think actually held back my improvement for a while was I used to just like since I was competing every weekend, right? I would just practice in the week leading up to the comp, just whatever events were at the comp. And that is kind of how I got into like wanting to be an all rounder because I was always practicing every event. But I think to really see like great tangible improvement in an event, you have to spend a couple months on it. Like you have to actually say like right now for me, those events are 5x5 through 7x7. Even though I'm not necessarily those are the
Let's
things I'm competing in.
go. Let's go,
Look,
dude. The big
right
cubes.
now, those are my worst events by
By a
absolutely a
lot.
mile.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of sick of it. And I've finally switched to Yao and I really enjoy it. I was using Hoya before actually. But
Mhm.
uh yeah, no, I think like definitely not focusing for long periods of time on specific events is definitely like one of my pitfalls when I was at my peak activity, if that makes sense. And I think that's also the reason why I continuously improved so much in Pura because like I said, that was the event that I just defaulted to and I didn't know what to practice. So that was the one event where I ended up always practicing and
Right. Right.
I think you can see that in my results. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
And there were also like there were times where I would like take a break from other events, including Pyraminx, just to focus on one specific event. Like at the end of 2024, like between August and I would say November and December, I was really, really into 2x2. I learned all of CLL and EG1 in the span of about 9 hours. And then I really just only did 2x2 for a few months and I improved really quickly in that. So I think like that's a lesson to myself that I need to do stuff like that more. Another
Had you
example of that,
learned COLL or something similar to that before you started on those?
not really. I do know full COL now. I did not at the time. I did the most similar thing I really knew was I knew a fair amount of OLCP actually. I know probably a quarter, maybe a third of OLCP. Not really on purpose. I've just kind of learned a lot of altags for OLLs, and I pay attention to what they do for the corners, and I always recognize what corner case I have.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I
Dang,
think
though, that's still really
OLCP was the
fast. Like, I was messing around with CLL, and it would take me, like, I don't know. I spent, like, probably 6 hours just trying to get the Soons down, and it still wasn't super locked in. I guess I just learned Alex kind of slow. Or maybe you're super fast at it.
I do think I'm fairly fast learning Alice, but I think another thing that probably helped me. So before I was already used to the recognition, right? Because before I was doing CLL and EG1, I was using Ortega, but I
Hmm.
was one looking my Ortega solves because I knew I would recognize like OLL and then I recognized the corner case in inspection, and then I knew from the corner
Ah,
case
all
I
your
knew where the bar
recognition
was
is
gonna be.
already there. Okay.
So I already could one look. I already had recognition. I literally just had to learn the algs, and
That's
I think
super
that
helpful. Yeah, the
yeah,
algs themselves are so easy. But
absolutely.
yeah, the Soon cases were just killing me. It was like they all blended together at the end of every day. Okay, cool. I feel a little less bad about myself, but you're still good at absorbing information quickly. So, with blind, when did you learn for the first time? And when did you start realizing, oh, I'm improving fast. I should really dedicate time to this?
Yeah, so I learned blind. I believe it was either early December or late November of 2024. I remember it was at least late November because I did not do it at Indiana Championship. So it was at the end of 2024. Um, I learned it. I remember I got my first success was like 5 minutes, and people already told me, "Oh, that's like a pretty quick first success. Like that's good, whatever." And then I just kept doing attempts, and then I had a I had a comp with three blinds. I think 4 days after I learned it, or maybe 5 days. It was an Ohio State comp, and I got a 3 minute 03 success at that comp. I want to say, and that was my overall PB at the time, which was super encouraging to me. And I remember after that comp, I learned M2, and I just kind of got PB every solve for a while. And I don't know, blind was like, I still don't, I kind of hate my blind video because I don't think I'm that qualified to make it, honestly. I think like I did improve really fast. I think I'd be interested to see like what place I am in the world for fastest time to go over 3 to under 45 because that took me 3 comps, I want to say, maybe 4.
And that was M2OP?
Yeah, that was M2. I still use M2 OP.
Okay.
But I I think like the only reason I improved, I don't like I know my improvement was very quick, but I think the main reason is I just practiced more than most people that are doing blind for
Yeah,
the first
okay.
time.
So you never did Arousca, you never did commutators. It was just kind of like, I'm going to refine the beginner stuff as well as I can quickly.
Yeah. Well, I learned how to you know what one passing is?
Yeah, yeah.
I learned how to one pass pretty like most people don't learn how to one pass with M2OP because your execution's so slow that it makes retaining that much information with that short of a memo pretty difficult.
Hmm.
But I remember I was watching, I think it was Java Cuber's like 3 blind progression video, which is a really good video. And he mentioned like one passing. I didn't know what that was. And I figured I'd try it out and I realized I could basically just do it. So that made me sub one like instantly. And now I'm averaging maybe 48. ish, and I have not been.
Okay.
I haven't been practicing blind at all. I have three roommates, and it makes it pretty difficult to have like a quiet room, because we're all home at similar times. But definitely three blind is like once I'm done with Pira, I think three blind is still like the event I probably have the most potential in besides Pira. So I definitely think learning like freestyle, I've looked at it, it doesn't seem that difficult, even though in so many cases it seems pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah.
And I
For
definitely think
people who
learning that
absorb
could be interesting.
algorithms well, all of them have told me that it's extremely doable to learn quickly. Um,
Okay.
so it seemed like,
Yeah.
did you watch the JPerm video about how we just kind of like absorbed it all quickly in a week?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what made me pretty confident that I could also do that. But
that one explains kind of the theory. I haven't done it, obviously. I've considered, but I don't know. Like, first I want to at least I want to get my momentum back in 3x3, and then we'll go
it's
from
fair.
there.
Do you know three blind?
I have like 10 successes at home
Okay.
with OPOP. That's it. I just kind of learned it once and was like, okay, this is a lot of mental effort and I don't enjoy practicing it that much. So I might work on it again later. I probably will because it involves
Yeah.
a lot less physical dexterity. But yeah, or at least
I think
you can
blind's in
turn
a
slower and still go well.
absolutely. I think blind also is an event where like you really gotta wanna with blind. Like I think a lot of events you can kind of force yourself to practice if you want to get good, but you don't really enjoy the event as much. You can kind of force yourself to practice and get good anyway. Blind, like, is so different to speed solving and requires such a different skill set that it's like the event where I feel like in order to practice, I need the most genuine motivation. And when I was practicing it a lot, it was my favorite event by far. Uh, three blind and multi blind especially were my favorite events. But now I just am not as inclined to do it, so I haven't been practicing, and that's why I'm not improving. And I mean, that's obviously every event you could say that for, but three blind in particular, I think, or blind in particular, I think like because it's so different, you really gotta wanna.
Yeah. Hmm. It's an interesting way to
I
say
don't
it,
know
but you're totally right. Like it's just it. Yeah. Hmm. With all
though.
the stuff that you've been doing, are there any like specific habits or hard things that like you remember being really frustrating to learn or improve?
Definitely look ahead is the thing I struggle with most across all of cubing. It's kind of a big reason why, like, long events are my worst events. Well, like big cubes and megaminx. Um, Even if you look at my 3x3 solves, like I average sub 8 and I pause all after almost every pair.
Mm,
Uh, and I only learned how to plan first pair like once I was almost already sub 8. So I think like the planning and solutions, well, not solutions, but the planning and look ahead aspect of cubing, especially look ahead, is something I found really hard. I know the idea is just like don't look at the pair you're solving and look at the rest of the cube and you can look ahead, but that's like something that I didn't even think about focusing on because I didn't feel like I had to
yeah.
for a really long time, and having bad look ahead habits is been really tough for me to break, but I've definitely found practicing big cubes recently has like forced me to think more critically about how I look ahead and has made looking ahead on 3x3 especially really easy. Like I haven't been practicing 3x3 in particular like at all recently, but I got a huge PR at my last comp, and I think a big part of that was just like big cubes forcing me to be more conscious about my look ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, 3x3 in comp is weird because you can almost practice bad at home or do a lot of drills where you're like just kind of like forcing yourself to turn faster and absorb the pieces better. But if you lock in really hard in competition some of the time, you can still turn on the look ahead part of your brain for a little while before it gets really tired out. So I can see that where you start to learn look ahead more. You have the turning, you have the solutions in place, and you can just kind of like have a big jump.
Yeah. I think like another hard thing for me with look ahead is like pacing my turning, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I'm I'm very much like all the 3x3 skill I have almost is because I can turn it well. I would say, my turning is without a doubt the best part of myself, and because of that, I feel inclined to turn as fast as I can always, and that makes looking ahead difficult, and you shouldn't do that. But um, I find like, especially because my best events are all sprint events where you are gonna turn as fast as possible because you have to. I find the idea of turning at like 85% speed, just getting myself to do that and be consistent with it is really challenging to wrap my brain around, as weird as that sounds.
It's not really challenging though. It's not weird. Sorry, it is very challenging.
Yeah.
It's like a completely different way of thinking than you have been.
Yeah, I don't know. But I definitely know that's something I need to do because I've had people that are more skilled than me and more knowledgeable than me point that out in myself. Um, but I think obviously the goal is just to be able to turn at full speed and not pause anyway. So hopefully someday I'll just get there.
I don't know that anyone does that, actually. Like, nobody turns at full speed at the top level.
Really? Really?
Maddie told me that he doesn't turn at full speed in competition.
That's crazy because he turns so fast.
Yeah.
Um,
Even the fastest people's peak turning speed is not what they use in competition. Everybody at the highest level slows themselves down even marginally so that they can have control and sort of see what's going on.
that's interesting. I'm also surprised with like, I feel like obviously I'm not them. I don't know their solving style as well as they do, but for somebody like Maddie, he obviously still turns incredibly fast at comp and he turns super fast at home. Like the percent reduction in his turn speed for comp, I would imagine is fairly minimal because he does turn so fast. Like there's only so much faster he could possibly turn, I assume. Uh, I feel like it's impressive that people like that are in tune with their turning enough to make that small of a deduction and still have it be meaningful.
Yeah, it's very small.
That's a really impressive skill to me.
The two other things with Maddie that are like very outlier are, one, he almost doesn't look ahead because he plans his whole solve basically. He made comments on the pod that I did with him that sparked that whole Dylan Miller and Caden Lee is look ahead real. That was that conversation with Maddie where he was like, I hate look ahead because like I wish I had never worked on look ahead because now I just absorb the whole solve as I pick the cube up and I don't even need to look ahead. The limiter's my turning speed. So that's weird. And the other thing is Maddie is so good at turning that he said, I know full ZB and I just choose not to use it unless I'm turning bad because it slows me down. And
that's ridiculous.
Stewie went and reconstructed a bunch of Maddie solves and he was like, yeah, when your F2L is 0.4 slower, you always use a ZB. And it's like, Maddie is so aware of how well he's turning and his brain is fast enough to keep up with it that he can option select between ZB and CFOP depending on how fast he's turning and which works better with his turning on a given day.
That's insane. I had no idea he did that.
Yeah.
I don't keep up with 3x3. I thought he was just like a straight OLPL guy. That is
he knows full
genuinely
VLS,
absurd.
he knows ZB, and he chooses what to use on a solve based on how well he's turning.
Well, he knows full VLS too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I didn't know people
he learned VLS first. Like he learned VLS back in like 2019.
Okay, that makes sense because I don't think that's an Alex that the people prioritize anymore. Really,
generally no, but it gives him a lot of interesting knowledge to like skip OLL randomly. The best 3x3 solvers are so many standard deviations ahead of the rest of the top 100. It's completely ridiculous.
3x3 like at the top, like 3x3 in general as an event is so oversaturated with talent. Like I wish, just for my own curiosity's sake, that Pyraminx was the main event of the WCA. Because I genuinely think if we had people putting the same amount of effort into an event like Pyraminx as people did with 3x3, because the best Pyraminx solver, in my opinion, the best Pyraminx solver, if you translated their skill to 3x3, they'd be like 35th in the world in 3x3. You know what I'm saying?
I actually asked Daniel Partridge this question. I was like, peak skill on Pyra versus your 3x3. Which are you better at? And this was second in Pyrrha versus 450 on 3x3. And he was like, oh, I think I'm better on 3x3.
Yeah, like,
And he's like
and
second in the world for Pyrrha at one point. He's like, I kind of fluked it. I wasn't the best in the world, but it's still like Dominic Radice asked the same thing. I was like, so you're second on Scube. You're 70th on 3x3. Which are you better at? And he was like, it's equal, maybe 3x3 weighted.
that's like, yeah. I I'm glad I'm glad people like are seeing the same thing I'm seeing. I don't think it's that difficult to see, but it's like I think if the skill level on 3x3 at the top end was, or on Puro was what it was, or what it is on 3x3, we would have people that average sub 1 on Pyraminx. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that people will average sub 1 one day. Especially because optimal body is 11 moves, and most bodies are a lot, like they're 9 or 10, 8 even, and Pyraminx optimal is literally always human findable.
Mhm.
So if you can turn at 10 TPS, which isn't that hard, and find optimal body, which isn't that hard, you should be sub 1, and somebody's gonna do it. A few people are gonna do it.
Yeah. At that point, the only thing is just like the ergonomics of accomplishing the turns with the tips at the same time.
Yeah, but I think like tips in general, tips are the weakest part of my solve by a fair amount. My tip solution, like the way I do tips is pretty suboptimal, but at the top level, I think most people are comfortable enough with how they do tips, and they have a pretty good strategy for every possible tip combination that I don't think tips really make that much of a difference. Like, there are definitely scrambles where if there's two different angles and they're pretty similar and the tips are better on one of the angles, you would pick that angle. But I think if we're talking about like projecting into the future with like objectively optimal sub 1 Pyraminx, I don't think, especially tips, I don't think are gonna really make a big difference in theoretical perfect solves, if that makes sense. I also think like with Pyraminx, I don't know, I guess what your knowledge level is with Pyra, but I would say the global knowledge level with Pyra is pretty low. As far
Extremely. It's
as far
extremely
as
low.
well, like,
Yeah, go ahead.
wait, sorry, what? Like what I meant by that is like nobody knows the most advanced sets, and that's like really silly to me because they're not that
Oh,
many
yeah.
algs.
Well, like my knowledge level is not super high. I solve intuitively with top first. Like I learned all the top first algorithms when John Gaynor was like preaching the gospel, and then I learned all that stuff right as L4E was like starting to get better, and I was lazy and didn't learn anything else. But like looking at L4E, it's clearly more optimal, but nobody actually learns it. They all just like kind of stare at the cube and do solves, and it's like if you just learned like all these final sets for like pseudo V's and finding all the optimal body solutions like you're talking about, then it's so much better. It's ridiculous. And nobody does it because you can get good just by solving and intuitively inspecting deeply.
Yeah, well, like so right now the top Pyraminx, well, the best Pyraminxer in the world is Lincoln,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows L4E, and he recently learned ML4E. um, but L5E is the thing, and it's only like 400 cases, which is really at the top level of an event.
Compared
400
to other
cases,
events, that's super reasonable.
it's not that much, and all the algs are pretty dang easy. Well, I don't even like calling them algs because they're all basically intuitive. But there's a tool, I forget who made it, but it's linked in Harsha Paladugu's pyramid sheet. It's just called the Human Optimal Solution Finder, and it basically shows how you could find optimal body with human methods. And if you toggle every method to be on, the most common way to find an optimal body, especially on bad scrambles, is with L5E. Um, so to me, that says people should be learning L5E because I estimate it's probably useful on 1 in 15 scrambles, which is a lot. But nobody, as far as I know, nobody knows full. There's definitely people that know parts of it, um, myself included. There's people that know way more than I do, but I think the future of Pyraminx is L5E. And even like if you have, I don't know how much you really wanted me to get into like Pyra on this, but like
I'm
if
happy to
you even
talk shop
have
about Pyrrha, dude. I kind of like low key. I would rather this podcast become more like cubing world than just talking to people, but that's cool too. Let's do
okay,
Pyrrha.
so like if you have a scramble like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You the only significant feature is you just have this like pre-made bar, right? Which that's usually pretty good. But on this, and usually when I see like that, I'm like, oh, I want to find there's probably a 2-move V, maybe a 3-move V. Um, but on this scramble there isn't, and you have so many options with this scramble if you know L5E because you could just do one move and now you have L5E, or you can do no moves and this is just pseudo L5E,
Mm-hmm.
or you could just do a move this way and now you have a different pseudo L5E, and then you also have all those options on the other side of the bar. So if you can make a bar and you know L5E, you have 6 feasible solutions.
Yeah.
That's
Not
so many.
counting not counting
So many.
cancellations into like option like the standard L5E. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, absolutely. So that's why I think L5E is absolutely the future of Pyraminx. And I was learning it, and I went on hiatus from that to focus more on one looking because I think that's something that's more important for me to focus on right now. But um I think I'm really surprised that people aren't into that idea a little more because you don't really hear about L5E. Um, I didn't even consider learning it until my good friend Carson Clark told me he was starting L5E. He's 10th in the world in Pyra. He's super good. So I was like, Carson's starting L5E. I want to start L5E. And then I started talking to him more about it, and he basically told me all the things I just told you. And now I'm very much on the L5E train.
cool.
Um,
It seems like the reason that hasn't happened yet is most Pyraminxers perceive the reason they're not fast as nerve control, not cube knowledge. And a marginal increase in cube knowledge won't actually help them get better results as much as more rounds, more solves, and better nerve control. So the likelihood of people like I struggle to see a world where that gets mass adoption until a lot of people prove it's viable. But you're right.
no,
It's
I
clearly like
agree
more
with you.
optimal.
I agree with you, and I think the other thing about Pyrrha is, um, it is almost objectively the most luck-based event in the WCA,
Hmm.
counting mirrors and the fact that tips don't actually make the solution different. Pyrrha has the least possible combinations and has the opportunity for more luck because of that, if that makes sense.
Oh, I for sure agree that it's the most luck based. If
And
you're talking about average to average, not within a single round.
yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And I think that's another reason people haven't adopted like the most advanced methods like L5E, and even very few people even know TL4E. Um, because most people want good official results, and most people know that every 5 or 6 rounds they're gonna get a really nice set of scrambles where the solutions are gonna be obvious, and then they're just gonna have to turn well, and they don't need L5E. Um, but I think in, say it's 2029, I think to win worlds, you're going to want to know L5E.
Sure.
Because I think like right now, there are a handful of people that could pull off a sub 1 peer average on some really nice scrambles. But I think treating Piro like Sujin and Zane are treating 2x2 and just forcing yourself to be objectively optimal, I think that's how we're going to see people global sub 1, which
Hmm.
I think it's maybe even a hot take that a sub 1 global is possible, because I've gotten some people disagreeing with me when I say that is going to happen, but
Oh, good grief. It's so possible. It's so
I'm glad you
possible.
agree with me. It's clearly possible on 2x2, and Pyrrha
It
takes less
it
moves than
depends on
2x2.
how you define global, and it depends on if you mean in comp or at home. Like, because nerve control makes it complicated and all that. But if you're talking about at home, can somebody get like an average of 1,000 at sub 1? Of course they can.
Oh yeah.
Of course they can. Just nobody tries hard enough.
I mean, people already have like I would assume, I'm not positive about this. I'm guessing world best for a really big average like that's about 1.3. And whoever's doing that is not doing it optimally at all. Um so no, there's Pyrrha as an event. I think like the future of Pyrrha is really interesting because Pyrrha got a lot faster last year. I don't know how much you paid attention because it's not really your thing, but
I
Pyrrha.
paid attention. It's crazy.
Okay, so I in January last year I got a 208 average, and that was actually I was super proud of that because you mentioned John Gaynor. That's the one of the reasons I'm into Pyraminx. That was my first sub John average. So I was, and he's from my home
Nice.
state. So I was really happy about that. But I got 208 at the time. That was 101st in the world. 208 right
Ha,
now.
yeah, that's like
I
200
think it
something
would
right
be
now or
like
something, right? Let me
it's
check.
still in the top. It's still top 200, but it's not for long. And top 100 now is 190, which is that's pretty crazy. I mean, um,
Pyrrha average world. Yeah, top. Let me see. Come on. Pyraminx average world. Top 200 is 213. So 208 would put you at like 170.
okay, yeah. So
208 is sub DG cubes.
true, he has 209. I remember that was the other
209.
person I was really excited about bumping with 208 because he was that's where I learned L4E is from DG cubes. That's where
Nice.
everybody learned L4E, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but no, yeah, I'm excited to see. I don't think I'm probably gonna be on the forefront of objectively optimal pyramids because I think I'm gonna be doing other things in my life when that happens, hopefully. But I'm excited to see who does. I have people in mind, but uh, I'm I'm excited to see where Pyra goes. I think it's gonna be really special, and I think there's a lot of like, whenever I hate to say it, but whenever like some little kid gets absurd results in an event, you always have like you hang with 2x2. You always have doomers that are like, oh, the event's over, it's cooked. No, it's not. Like Lincoln has 114, which is obviously an insanely fast average. Like 1-1 is really, really hard to do. But Lincoln solves aren't perfect. He can get better. And that means people can also get better than him. Like Pyraminx is so far from over.
Yeah. Cool. So, a couple other questions, and you're welcome to talk to me too if you want. If you don't,
Okay.
that's chill. How many hours of practice do you think you've put into Pyrrha lifetime?
Oh, I have no idea how to even guess that, but I would say over the past 2 years, I've probably averaged 1,000 solves a week.
Okay.
So I've probably over the past 2 years, I would, and probably a little more than that, because there have definitely been weeks I've done like a fair bit more than that. So I would say over the past 2 years, I've probably done over 100,000 pyramid solves, um, and then spent more time on things like one looking and you know, like untimed solves to help my solutions. So
Yeah.
however long that takes, well, I would say, wait, I can do some. Trying to think about how long. Like, I would say an AF50 maybe takes me 30 minutes. Not even AF50 maybe takes 20 minutes. So, well, I'm gonna do some quick math.
Yeah.
What? That's 100,000 divided by 50. That's so that's 2,000 AF50s, and then times 20. What's that's? I've probably put 40,000 minutes into just solving Pyrrha, which is
It's like 800 hours,
yeah,
or
like
is it?
800 hours. That's way less than I thought actually. Dang, I need to practice more.
I think this just proves the
um,
point you were saying. because top 3x3 solvers have easily put in like 10,000 hours.
Yeah. And maybe I could also be wrong about how long an AF50 takes me. Maybe it takes me more than 20 minutes. And it definitely used to take me more than 20 minutes. I used to be slower. So
Mhm.
I'm going to round up and say I put 1,000 hours in the Pyra.
Even if we round up to 1,000, that is an
That's still not that
extremely
much.
conservative number. Like, imagine you've put in more than that on 3x3. I guarantee it.
Lifetime, not in the past 2 years, but lifetime.
Lifetime you have.
Yeah. No, 100%. And in the past 2 years, I've still probably practiced 3x3 almost as much as Pyra.
Mhm.
It's my second favorite event. I mean, I do a lot of it. So, and I'm nowhere near like what we were saying. I'm nowhere near as good on a global scale at 3x3. I'm like world rank 700 or something. Now you got me thinking about the Daniel Partridge question. I might be better at 3x3 than Pyra. There's a good chance of it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's
It's
interesting.
weird, right?
What?
Every time I think
Yeah.
about this, it gives me anxiety that I chose 3x3 as one of my events I want to get good at, because it's like, dang it, if I had just picked, Pyra, which I already have a decent knowledge of, it's just attempts until I get to finals. It's not even hardly a question. But with 3x3, I question regularly, is it even possible? Because I'm not even not even mid-9, sub-10 yet. There's such a ridiculous hill to climb.
Absolutely. Like, but I think like as far as I understand, your other events that you practice a lot are like big cubes, right?
Yeah.
Big cubes I think are a really happy medium in between an event like Pyraminx and 3x3 in terms of like how competitive the world is at them.
Yes.
Because like Pyraminx, although it's more popular than big cubes in terms of amount of competitors,
The
big
amount of people
cubes
who are good is ridiculously low in Pyra.
No, that's what I'm saying. I agree. Like, I think getting top 200 in a big cube is easier than getting like, or harder than getting like top 50 in Pyra. But big cubes also aren't as oversaturated at 3x3 where you have to be like a doomer about, am I ever gonna get that fast? Because it's so ridiculously hard with 3x3. And big cubes I think are also like, wait, can I tell you what I would do if I was you and I really just wanted to get good?
Please.
I would dump all my time into 7x7 probably. And I'm not very qualified to say to do that because I mean I'm not that good at 7x7. You're better than me.
No,
But
that's not a good idea.
you don't think so?
No.
That's what I would want to do because I feel like you're clearly already pretty decent at it, and 7x7 is an event where if you like something I've been learning recently is if you just do solves, you're gonna get faster.
Yes,
And
there are a few reasons that that's not going to work if I want to do 3 through 5.
okay. Tell
And
me
this
about
might
it, 'cause
also
you've thought about this more than me.
this will also educate you on getting better at 7.
It probably will. Go ahead.
So the depth of solutions you can do on 7 is surprisingly deep. And if you just spam solves on 7, you will get better at a lot, assuming you are doing slow solves and reconstructing and finding good ways to do solutions, right? You will get measurably better at very complex creative things in center building, not edges. Edges are similar across big cubes. But in center building, you'll get good at complex stuff with 7x7. On 6x6, you have way less opportunities to do complex stuff. It has way narrower chances to do block building. And really, your center solutions end up being confined to building lines versus building 2x2 blocks. And then you have 2 lines built at once. And then by last 2 centers, 6x6 last 2 centers, it's very possible to just like recognize your last 2 centers case and do the whole thing. Whereas very few people do that on 7x7. 6x6 is basically smaller 7x7 though. Like if you get good at 6, you get good at 7. And most people get good at 6 and it translates to 7 because the hardware is better for the last 3 years. If you get good at 7 though, it will not carry over very directly to 5x5. It will somewhat carry over. But for 4 and 5, the events are short enough that you have to find a lot of small optimizations to get to real top level. So for 5x5, you have to be near perfect on your center solutions, especially with Yao. And there are a lot of things in 5x5 center solutions, like finding obscure ways to build a T center that you would never think about from 7x7. But on 5x5, there are a number of weird center patterns that you can convert into a T, which is then 2 moves away from making a 2x3, that you would never get into your brain just from doing 7 solves. And the nature of look ahead on 5x5 is more like 3x3, where you just have to flow. Whereas on 7x7, there's a lot more decision making. It's acceptable on a 7 solve to pause for point 1 to point 2 to look at multiple options because the potential time save from that is so high. Like if an edge pairing, I stop and I look at all my spots in 7, I could be saving like 3 flips in like so putting edges in places and pairing everything up. Whereas on 5, if I pause at all, you're just killing yourself because the potential time save is so marginal. So the skills of getting fast at 4 and 5 are very different from 7. And the precision of solutions you have to have on 4 and 5 is required, whereas you have freedom on 7x7. So if I put all my time into 7, I would get a lot faster at 6 and 7, but I would still have to use intentionality. I wouldn't get fast enough at 4 and 5, and it definitely wouldn't carry over to 3.
Okay, that's interesting. So the reason I said what I did, I think, comes from a fact that I'm just not that good at big cubes because I have definitely my 7x7 practice, I have seen carry over to every other end by end, but I think that's just because I haven't established a competent enough baseline with it yet for me to have to even think about the things that you're saying. I do like the point you brought up about the type of look ahead though. Like you said on 5 versus 7, 5 you should flow, 7 you should just it's okay to pause and assess. That's something I'm gonna try to think about that more. Because I think 5x5 is the event I've been practicing the most out of any N by N. 5x5 is my favorite event right now. And 5x5, I definitely think I'm trying to have sort of that flow mentality because like sounds like I should, and that's like what's come the most natural to me. But I've been trying to carry that over to the bigger cubes, and that might be hurting me, especially doing edges. I think I definitely do some inefficient things. Like as far as I think just incorrect option select is a pretty big issue for me. I think I just solve the wrong edge, pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Um,
Edge vision is very difficult on big cubes. The skill of top 7x7 solvers to absorb all the edge information at one time and make an informed decision is totally crazy to me. I had Mark Zimmerman critique some of my 7x7 solves. He's top 20, very good at 7. And the stuff that he's able to see in different routes you can take through edge pairing is crazy. And that skill is unique to 7x7. On 6x6, a lot of times your edge pairing is reduced to 5x5 edges and then solved from there because there's less pieces. But 7, there's so many degrees of complexity in edge pairing that you have to be able to see a whole lot more stuff to do it well. So that's I'm a long ways off from being at that level.
No, well, I think most people are, and obviously, but I compete with a few top big cubers. Obviously, like in the Midwest, Luke Garrett and Jack Pfeiffer are the two, and watching them do big cubes, like judging solves at comps, and seeing how different that is from my own solves is incredibly humbling and eye-opening because I'll have a 6x6 solve that feels pretty good. It's like a 205, and I'll record, so I'll check the video and I'm like, oh my goodness, that looks horrendous compared to what these guys are doing. But that makes me feel good because in the moment, like when I get a 205 on 6x6, I'm really happy about that. That's a good time for me, and I feel like there's not much more I can do to make the solve better. Like in the moment, it felt perfect, but then I watched the video and it's like, ooh, that was really far from perfect. But that's why big cubes are so fun for me right now. Is I got to the point practicing Pyra where if my solves weren't perfect, they just weren't gonna be good at all. And being able to do well in the midst of imperfection, I think makes practicing a lot more enjoyable because there's less pressure from myself, if that makes any sense.
That's why big cubes are my
Um,
favorite. They have margin for error.
I'm getting there with them. I've been a big cube hater for most of my cubing journey. And I think that most of that was just like predisposed biases from my pre-COVID habits where I pretty much only did 2x2, 3x3, and Scube as like the events I practiced.
Hmm.
But um I was former last in Indiana in 7x7,
Nice.
actually. Up until June of 2024, I was last in the state of Indiana. But but
The big cube halo
I
will wear off when it takes longer to see noticeable progression. The reason that most people don't make it further in big cubes is because the feedback cycle is so long. Like with Pyraminx, the feedback loop is so immediate. It takes me 30 minutes to do an average of 5 or like 6 solves on 7x7.
yeah.
And on Pyraminx, that's like an average of 50. And so as you get faster at big cubes, you start to hit these points where you do have to do a lot more solves over a lot more time to see any noticeable improvement. But they're pretty great.
Yeah, that was I think part of the thing that detracted me from big cubes initially, but what I've been doing, like how I've been practicing recently, most of my solves are untimed and it'll be like I'm in a philosophy class right now that I have to do a lot of reading for. And he all the readings are just PDFs, so I convert the PDFs to MP3s and it'll be like an hour and a half of that. And I'll just listen to that and do untimed 7x7. And that's I don't know how much that affects my ability to absorb the material, but it does help me with 7x7. So that's that's how I've basically gotten myself past the barrier of just not wanting to do 7x7 for an hour and a half.
Hmm.
Uh I've been using 7x7 to study, and that's been how I've been practicing.
Nice.
Um
What cube are you using?
um I don't know. So I was using a warrior, and then I got a Pi Cube warrior, and I opened it and I was like, this is really good. I like the inners a lot, but there's a problem. It catches on nothing all the time, and I
Hmm.
don't like that. So I go between this cube, the regular warrior, and then I also have this is probably my main. It's just like a Maelong, but it's got the LBL ball core in it, and then I did the like the Dorito mod on the inners. I like this cube a lot. I might try to Florian mod it because I know people swear by that, but Florian modding a 7x7 sounds like one of the most tedious activities you could do as a human. So
I
I don't
never
I
did
don't
it
know if
myself. I just paid Ethan Show to do it, who I'm interviewing later today. But
ooh
yeah,
nice.
I have both of those puzzles on the way from the cubicle. I actually I have every 7x7 except for the single track Aufu on the way that has been released in the last 2 years. So I'll have a comparison video coming out soon.
Okay, cool. So I actually I used both of my PRs are on an Alfu, a triple check Alfu, which I don't own, but Jack Piper does own one, and he let me use it, and it's really good because he broke it in, and he's really good. But so after that comp, I obviously went on the cubicle. I bought a triple track Alfu, and I accidentally sent it to my Indiana address. So I will have my Alfu in March when I go home. But for now, I'm on the Warrior.
Okay.
Uh, but I definitely think the Alfu is my favorite 7x7 I've ever tried. It feels really similar to the new Aoshi, which I also really like.
Yeah.
Um, I wish it wasn't so small though. Maybe I'll get used to it, but with a 7x7 not small, the piece maybe this is almost certainly a skill issue, but the pieces are just so little that it makes look ahead even harder than it already is for me. Um,
Oh, that's funny. I've never heard anyone complain that. When you get used to it, you can't go back.
okay, because I even when I got the new Aoshi, I didn't even main it for a while. I was still stubborn and stuck on like the old WRM version of the Aoshi because it was just
Yeah.
bigger and I like that
Several
better.
people were like that.
Okay. I'm sure I just got to get used to it, but
Yeah. That was a common sentiment, but most people have switched eventually.
Okay.
I gotta get going.
Good enough. All
But
right.
final questions. Any last questions or thoughts from you? I have a few minutes left, but we gotta land the plane in a few minutes here.
All right. Um. I'm cooking up a banger. Where do you see yourself going with cubing YouTube? Like, do you have a goal with that? Because you're like one of the more interesting cubing content creators right now. And I think you probably have a lot of options for where you could go with that. Do you have like long-term plans with the channel that you're willing to share, or you keeping that under wraps?
By go, do you mean content I want to make or what place it has in my life?
Uh, both, but more the latter, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, it hardly makes me money right now. I make money, like boot camp made me money. But that
Yeah.
was a test run. That wasn't intended to be a job. I'm working on some stuff with Cubing GG that might be able to be a part-time income. But the thing is, like, I don't ever want to be in a place where entertainment is what pays the bills for me. I would be willing to do it through education, but I don't think cubing coaching, I don't think I can earn enough money directly through coaching in order for that to be the level of full-time income that I want to have. So right now, I see the YouTube channel as a really, really fun hobby that could create a side income via coaching, that also pays for the hobby and allows me to meet all sorts of cool people. Like Felix DM'd me the other day and was like, I listened to all your stuff and I want to come on, but I don't want to come on yet because you'll stop making episodes probably. So do 20 and then I'll come on. And I was like, this is so cool. Like I'm meeting all these cool cubers. So it's a hobby that pays for itself and makes a little bit of money. If I can do some cool stuff with Cubing GG that I am working on, then it could become a part-time income. And the main reason I wanted to do this actually was if I want to start a company in the future and I need to get investors on the team or stand out in some way, having a publicly documented experience of getting really competitively good at something is kind of cool. So
I agree. I agree.
there's this interesting article by a guy named Paul Graham called Fierce Nerds. Paul Graham is a very famous business management thinker. And he wrote several little blog posts that have shaped a lot of like the most important business people in Silicon Valley. And he has this one called Fierce Nerds. And this blog post is basically saying there's this interesting subset of people who seem kind of socially awkward and weird and are totally nerdy, and seem kind of cocky and over-competitive to most normal people. But this subset of people who tend to have well above average, like raw intelligence, a drive to win, and they find niche ways to apply that drive to win that are generally skill-based, which gives their confidence an actual foundation. It's not just them being cocky. This specific subset of person is the best sort of person to start entrepreneurial companies that have the potential to be huge. Many of those companies won't work, but that personality is what's required to design a tech product that could be massive, because you have to have like a very sharp brain, a knowledge of systems, ability to think fast, an extreme desire to win, and a little bit of like self-confidence. All those are ingredients that investors look for in an entrepreneur. And cubing fits squarely into the fierce nerd activities category. So I also think it's a really cool opportunity if I can make this like a semi-hobby where it makes enough money that I can justify spending time on it for it to be a differentiator in the future if I go start a company. So I don't ever see it as being a full-time thing. I see it as being something that I love to do, something that subsidizes my passion, and something that can make me stand out in other business arenas. But I work other side jobs other than cubing. Like I don't have any one normal job. I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to be when I grow up. But my hope is that it's something that I love to do. I can get good at competitively. The videos give me connections and motivation to keep going. turn a little bit of money off of it, and maybe create jobs in the community if my cubing GG ideas grow well, and make me stand out in business. I think that
I think
answers the
that's
question.
no, that answers it and more. I think that's like pretty much the perfect mentality for somebody that's doing what you're doing. Because I mean, I guess I figured it wasn't going to be a full-time thing, but the fear bringing up thanks for bringing up fierce nerds. I have that bookmark now. I'm actually going to look into that because I like the idea of that. Um, but I don't have anything else to say. I know you said you have to go. I also have an obligation in 15 minutes, so I also have to
Cool.
go.
Great. Well,
But it
last
was
question for everybody.
okay.
What aspect of cubing gives you the deepest joy?
Um, I would say like meeting people and talking to people because I'm a pretty shy person and cubing's definitely like uh, introduced me to a lot of people that I would have never talked to otherwise, and it's definitely helped me break out of my shell a little bit. So that's like the part of cubing I'm most grateful for sure.